we can start the session. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the UrBIOfuture Final Conference webinar. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I hope you can all see it now. Welcome to the session. My name is Ana Martinez. I work at Sustainable Innovations, which is the company in charge of the communication and dissemination of this European project. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And well, first of all, this is the agenda that we are going to go through today. Please bear in mind that the session will last only for 1 hour, or that's at least what we are expecting. So we are going to try to go very straight to the point. And please, if you have any questions and you see you cannot answer them because either they are too complex or too long, be aware that we will be collecting them all and we will send a follow-up email with the replies to them. And some basic instructions to make the most out of our webinar today. Please be aware that the session is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording with you also in this follow-up email. Please try to make sure that your microphone is muted all times to avoid echoes or problems with the sound. If you have any questions, there is a chat on the right side of the screen that you can use to send us your questions and your comments. We will be also providing you an email address at the end of the session so that you can also write to us if anything comes up to your mind later. And also, we hope to make out of this an interactive session, and we have prepared a couple of interactive questions that we will appreciate if you can participate in through Mentimeter. Some of you may know it, some of you may be the first time you hear about it. It's really easy and it's really simple. You just have to go to menti.com. You can do that on your browser, or you can do that with your phone if that's easier. Then you will be asked to introduce a code, which is there. Don't worry, you don't need to write it down now because we will be repeating it when the time comes. And then you just vote or answer those questions that we will be asking. Okay, so first of all, I would like to provide you with some really basic context before we start getting into more details about the project. So first of all, what is the bioeconomy? There is a big debate of what is the bioeconomy and the bio-based industry, but we have taken the definition that the European Commission provides, which is that the bioeconomy is everything encompassing those parts of the economy that are using renewable biological resources from land, from the sea, like agriculture, crops, forestry, fish, any type of animals, and even microorganisms to produce food, materials, and energy. And why is it important, the bioeconomy? Well, we think it's got a huge economic potential because it employs nearly 18 million people, and it could create 1 more million jobs, and especially in rural and coastal areas by 2030. It generates an annual turnover of 2.3 trillion euros, and it has a great potential to boost the reduction of our dependence on fossil fuels. If we rely on other resources, then we don't need to depend that much on fossil ones. So that's what we think about it, but we would like now to go to the first interactive part. And here, what's in the bioeconomy for you? So now you can go to Menti and use the code 797610 and send us what's in the bioeconomy for you. Why is it important and relevant for you? So I don't know if, okay, we got the first One, it's a way of life. Why? Okay, wow, it's an opportunity for economic development, I guess. It's my work field, so I guess we have quite a few people working in bioeconomy. Very nice. Development, a sustainable future, the future of food. Okay, this is really great. We have like nearly 30 answers. The only option is someone saying on the test, on the chat. Okay, so just a couple of minutes more for those of you who didn't vote yet, and we will then move to the next part. Sustainable future is the one that most people are replying, which indeed, as we said, it's a great opportunity not only to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, but to use more sustainable and create more sustainable products and a greener way of life. Okay, so I think we leave this here, and then I'm going to hand over now to my colleague Aleix from the University Autonomous of Barcelona, who is going to introduce some key concepts about the project and some of the most important results. So please, Aleix. I don't know if, let me see if I can unmute you, Aleix, because I cannot hear you. Can you speak now?
Hello, now I'm here. Are you
Yes.
listening to me? Okay.
I can hear you now. Thank you.
So perfect. Thank you, Anna, for your introduction. Here is Aleix Barrera from Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, and I'm going to introduce you a little bit about the project, and also we will go with the following points of the presentation. As you can see in the slide, the main objective of our project, we had 5 main objectives, but I think that one of the most important that we are going to introduce today is the third one, which is related to the gaps and skills mismatch between education and the industry needs. Because we focused in these gaps, we are going quite quickly, as Anna said, which are these gaps. And with these gaps, we identify if we can create pilot centers to fill these gaps. And also, we tried to identify which guidelines can industries and also academia follow to collaborate and to fix these gaps, because we really think that this collaboration is too important. That's why we also have another objective, the number 2, where we say that we are willing to foster this interaction and alignment among education and research institutions and industries. So as you can see in the next slide, during the World Project, as one of our aims was to provide others with some information. Keep in mind that this is a CCA project from BBI, Jan Undertaking. So from the design to the co-creation process, we were developing some products, some documents, which are available in our website that could be useful for other institutions, other universities, or maybe clusters of industries that want to analyze which are their needs in the field of bioeducation and bioeconomy. So here you can see some of the activities. During the design, you can find the instruments that we use to get data, which you can use also to get data from your own sector or region. Then during the research and the reports, during the research, we recover data. Here you have some insights of that, but we produced all these reports where you can find which are the educational programs analysis that we did, which are the competences that nowadays we can find in universities and also better education. We also analyze which are the stakeholders needs, the industry needs, and with all this information, we decided we've produced the report about the gaps, and then with these gaps and with collaboration with some stakeholders, we analyzed which could be the guidelines to foster this collaboration between industry and education. And as you will see with Be Your Rookie, and later on with my colleague from CTA, we will present these guidelines. So on the next slide, you can also see which are the main resources available in our website. So as I said before, we tried to produce resources and tools that may be useful for others. So here you have the links to all the resources. I know that Anna will upload the presentation in our YouTube channel this afternoon or maybe tomorrow, but you will have this information available, and it's all available in our website. So here you have a brief overview of all these resources. But now I'm going straight to the results of our project. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the map of educational programs that we did. As you can see in the next slide, in our website, you can find a map. Each dot represents one institution that we analyzed, educational institution in that case. In total, we analyzed 912 programs, but in our website, you can find information of 1,228 educational programs. The reason why we analyze less programs than the ones we mapped is because some of them have the same curricula, and since we didn't want to have a deviation in the analysis, we analyzed just one program with the same curriculum. That was, for example, the case of Spain, where we have some BET programs and all of them have the same curricula. So we decided to analyze just the main curricula, which is developed by the central government. As global, you can see that we analyzed educational programs in 26 EU countries. With all this information, we go one step further, and we also wanted to know which were the stakeholders' needs. As you can see in the following slides, sorry for the delay because Anna is sweeping the slides. Okay, thank you, Anna. We try to analyze which were the stakeholders identification. We start with focus groups and interviews, where we get the main ideas of the competences that they will need in the future. We were not asking for the present needs, because we think that if we must change or help universities and vet institutions to change or to rethink their educational programs, this can take a little bit of time. So we ask them to think which will be the skill needs that you will need in your professionals in the future, in the near future. So with the focus group and interviews, we get the main information about the competences that they know that they will need in the future. And then we contrast all this information in the survey, where we ask the companies and the industries to identify which are the skills that they will need in the future. They prioritize which were the most important needs or skill needs that they will need in the future. So now we will explain you or show you a little bit which were the main gaps that we find. As you know, as I'm just explained, we analyzed the educational programs at universities, vet institutions. We analyzed PhD, master degrees, bachelor degrees, and also a bit professional training. So with all this information and the information that we get from the industry, we analyze where we can find the gap, where we see that the industry says, okay, we need, for example, the most important one for them is we need more professionals prepared to work in research and innovation. And when we look at the educational programs analysis, we find out that there are some gaps. So the needs that the industry say we will need this in the future, the actual educational programs are not giving this information. So this is the order. When you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you will see that we have competences till the number 15, you will see that somehow we find that there is like a transversal line, which is research and innovation. Why we say that? Because, for example, in some of the competences, research and innovation was the most prioritized by the companies. But we saw that somehow when they are also talking about personal initiative and entrepreneurship or management, they are also talking about circular economy and zero waste. I don't know, for example, sales, marketing. We saw that the main focus or the main preoccupation of companies nowadays is how can they transfer the knowledge from the labs to the market. They saw that there is like a gap in the professionals' knowledge, because most of them are so focused on research. They are very good doing research, finding out new knowledge, but it's difficult to find a way to transfer this knowledge to the production, and from the production to the market. So these are the main competences. And here we find that somehow it's difficult to identify the collaboration between the industry and the universities. Uh, we can see that this collaboration is it's okay when they are talking about research, and especially the last weeks we saw that there is a lot of collaboration between industry, between universities, between research centers. But it seems that somehow it's more difficult when we are talking about education. And in my case, I'm working at university, and I know that it's somehow difficult to change our educational programs, because sometimes professors knows which are the industry needs, but it's quite difficult to find a way to change the educational guides, the educational programs, because we need to access the national agencies, we need to produce a lot of documents, a lot of bureaucracy somehow. But at the same time, we know and we realize with this project that industry wants to collaborate with educators, with universities, and universities also want to collaborate with industry. So we tried with our project also to find which can be the guidelines that they may follow in order to achieve this collaboration. So here in the presentation, you have which are these main gaps. Now, Anna, I think he's going up and down, but you will see these main gaps that we identified. Since we don't have so many time now, you can check it, and as Anna said, if you have a specific question in one specific competence, you can put it in our chat and we will try to answer it later on. If we don't have time today, we will do it writing, and we will send you a document with all the answers. And now, Anna, you can do the Menti if you want.
Oh, hi again. Sorry, I was speaking with my microphone in mute. So I hope you had the chance to take a quick look at what are the main gaps we identified. If not, hopefully you can review that later, as Alex was saying. And now we would like to hear from you if you have identified any other gaps between current educational programs and the bio-based industry needs. Is there anything in your mind that you think could help improve or bridge these gaps? Any gap that come to your mind? You can go again to menti.com and use the 797610. Someone already sent sustainable and sustainability. I think that was maybe from the session before. Interdisciplinarity. That's something we will talk about later, definitely, because it's a very transversal field. Available capital. Well, yeah, talking to policymakers, to member states, to authorities, so that we make sure, and also the private sector, of course, could invest on this. Regional routes, that's also something we are going to tackle afterwards. Communication, yeah, it's not easy. I promise you, it's not easy to reach everyone and to target everyone and the different also stakeholders, but we are working on that. Government support is key. Industry-based lectures, it's super important, definitely, that the industry is taking a part on also helping education. Community facilitators, definitely. Okay, we had some more before, so I'm gonna wait and give you a couple of more minutes to send your comments. So communication is the one that has been repeated more often. That's very interesting. I mean, in the end, communication encompasses a lot of things. And as you will see later, one of the key things we've identified is collaboration. But of course, in order to collaborate, we need to communicate. So it could be kind of aligned. Okay, great. So let me now, we are then moving to the next one. And please, Paulina, I'm gonna give access to her as well. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. I'm turning on her microphone. Welcome, Paulina. I think we can hear you now.
Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. So I'm Pauliina Tukiainen from VTT Technical Research Center of Finland, and I will present a summary of BioRookie case study and recommendations for collaboration between the pilot infrastructures and educational institutes. BioRookie is an open access pilot center that offers unique tools, expertise, and piloting environment to develop novel products and processes for bio and circular economy. And here, piloting meets the step between the laboratory and industrial scale. So piloting equipment is significantly bigger than the laboratory equipment, but smaller than the industrial scale. So BioRookie provides services for the whole development chain from raw materials to end products. And we are developing new process concepts and products from the biomass, waste and side streams by utilizing several technology platforms as a process chemistry platform, as you see in the middle of the picture. And in right hand side, there are some examples of the products that we are developing, like fuels from waste, recycled textile fibers, chemicals from cellulose, and plastics recycling is a hot topic at the moment. And we use also process data and modeling and simulations to speed up the development of these novel process concepts. In Europe, there is also quite many others open access pilot plants that are owned by the research institutes and universities, and some of them are independent companies as well. And if industry collaborates with the pilot facilities, that substantially lowers the financial risks and speeds up the commercialization of the new products and processes, since they do not need to invest their own pilot plants, and they can use the existing ones. Within this case study, we evaluated that how these pilot infrastructures could be utilized in the education. And then in the next slide, we present the BioRookie case study, where we focused on the analyzing opportunities to build the pilot ecosystem in Helsinki capital region. And here our aim was to analyze how the piloting infrastructures can be efficiently utilized in education and how we did it. So in collaboration with different stakeholders from the relevant educational institutes, we identified that what kind of needs we have for the collaboration, who are the potential partners, how we could organize these cooperation, what would be the benefits for the collaboration, what are the main barriers, and what would be the key practices that we could start using to get most out of this kind of collaboration. And based on the analysis, then we generated the concept and the prepared action plan and the recommendations for other pilot plans as well. In the next slide, we show that how we performed this study. So we gathered the information in many ways. So we first started with the focus group interviews and asked from the cluster organization and educational institutes that what kind of needs they see for this kind of collaboration. And based on the analysis, we prepared the online questionnaire that we send it to Finnish educational institutes and asked them that what kind of expectations they would have the collaboration and what would be the means that they would prefer for this kind of collaboration. And based on these inputs, we organized the face-to-face interviews with the educational institutes in Helsinki capital region, and also organized a workshop to relevant stakeholders to prepare the action plan. And then we drafted the recommendations for the collaboration. In the next slide, it shows that the survey results very clearly indicate that there is a need and interest for the collaboration between the pilot infrastructures and the educational institutes. So educational institutes show that it would be very interesting that pilot facilities would host visits for the students and provide the training placements for the students and also connect students with the wider business network and provide opportunities to them to collaborate with other bioeconomy actors. And then based on these inputs and the analysis, we identified some opportunities and the challenges for the collaboration, and these are summarized in the next slide. So if we start with the most feasible opportunities, so thematic visits to the pilot plants as a part of the courses organized by educational institutes and the schools would be quite easy to organize, and this would also provide a good opportunity for students to see that how the technologies are scaled up, since often the educational institute do not have their own pilot facilities, since pilot facilities are rather expensive to maintain. And this also links very well to the industry needs that was presented in Alex's previous presentation. So industry sees that the piloting and scale-up skills are needed for transferring the scientific discoveries into novel products and processes. And by participating to courses that are organized by educational institute, we could provide insights for that. Then the second one, the internship placements and thesis work in the research projects in pilot environment would also provide a way for educational institutes to promote the skills in the scale up that are needed. And the third one, trainer to trainer activities would of course be the powerful tool for multiplying the impact. But of course we also identified some challenges for the collaboration, and one of them is that the pilot plants are not typically the educational providers. So if we would organize the longer training courses, that would require significantly more resources and also the financing. So there it's very crucial to collaborate with the educational institutes. And if we think about the internship placements, these need the coaching and supervision of trainers from the pilot plants, and they need to consider IPR issues and occupational safety issues, confidentiality issues. And this is, of course, something that can be done and is done, because at the moment we are already hosting both the thesis workers and the internship placements, but it requires, of course, the extra effort compared to everyday day work that we are doing. And then it was mentioned that there is a lack of information on supply and demand of training places, and for that we are making the contact list and so on. So this is, of course, something that can be overcome again. But these similar issues are relevant to other pilot plants as well, as when we have discussed with other pilots. So similar issues have came up from there. And based on this analysis, we have made recommendations for the European level collaboration. So that's in the next slide. So each pilot facility needs to tailor their own concept for the collaboration, since everyone has their own rules for the IPR for IPR, occupational safety, and the local regulations. And often, as mentioned in previous slide, the pilot facility owners are not the educational providers. So it's very essential to collaborate with educational institutes in organizing the study models. Thematic lectures and excursions, so they are easy to organize. But if we think about the longer study models, this requires significantly more resources and external financing, and should be organized in collaboration with educational institutes. And we need also subsequent support of national and European authorities to foster the collaboration between the educational institutes and the pilot plants, and this would be needed to reduce the administrative and financial constraint, and also provide funding and network to collaborate across the sectors and the countries. And then we need also a specific agreement, since each European country has its own legislation for the organizing the education and so on. But we see also that there is a huge amount of opportunities through the exchange programs, student exchange programs, and these kind of activities, and also in the European research projects to deepen this collaboration. And as often, so also here it's very important to facilitate the networking, knowledge sharing, and collaboration between the pilot plants. And this is especially related to collaboration in education, since, for example, in Pilots for You project, we have a network, or nowadays after the project, it's a network that provides information about the available pilot facilities within Europe, but we should also deepen that analysis to the collaboration with the educational providers. So thank you very much for your attention. This summarizes.
Pauliina?
Sorry. Yeah.
So there was a question for you.
Okay.
Gerlinde is asking if the study focused on higher education institute or on vocational education.
It included both. So it included both. So it included actually from vocational schools until the high schools. Until the university level education.
Okay, I hope that Well, yes, I guess that answers the question. Okay, so now I'm gonna give the room to our colleague Gloria de la Viña from CTA, and I'm gonna turn on her microphone. Okay. Hi, Gloria, can you speak now? You have to turn on the microphone as well on your end. Okay, are you?
Yeah, okay, here we are. Yeah, thank you. So thank you, Anna. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending this webinar. I'm going to talk about the 10 best practices for academy and industry collaboration we selected for our UrBIOfuture project. Okay, these 10 best practices to promote business and universities collaboration is part of the set of materials we have developed in our UrBIOfuture, so you can find them in our project web. Next one, please. So what we have been defining is specifically for our UrBIOfuture as a guidelines and dynamization tools to facilitate academy and industry cooperation in order to develop altogether circular bioeconomy education programs. Next, please. So our approach is built upon previous success cases. We performed not long ago research exercise to find out this good practices all over the world about university business cooperation. So we thought that we could use this as a consolidated and strong base to decide which of these 63 good practices could be more interesting to address one our future objective, that is to foster interaction and alignment among educational and research institutions and industry, and also with having in mind to contribute to the our UrBIOfuture afterlife impact, which is mostly to give tools, to give different type of guidelines to support collaboration between the academy and industry to provide really to the society that and the next generation of European circular bioeconomy education programs. Next, please. So of course we had to select from these 63 10 best practices, because if not it could be really a mess. And what we did was to review the 63 best practices we had spotted in the previous work and try to identify the 10 that were more interesting. And so they were belonging not to any chapter of this previous work that had a wider scope. So we focus in the chapter 1, chapter 3, and chapter 4 of this manual. Next one, please. So talking now about the best practices for our UrBIOfuture, we try to be very operative and very practical in order, imagining that we had to sit down academic world and industrial world together to collaborate in a very complex exercise. So first of all, we had to do a lot of things, not just go straight forward to start programming. We really have to do things before to really guarantee success. And the first thing is to establish a collaboration strategy. This collaboration strategy is about how are we going to collaborate. How are we, all the stakeholders are sit down here in this table, are going to collaborate. It's not a strategy for the education program. It's a strategy to know exactly how we're going to collaborate. And the first very important thing is to try to explore and define the expectations and hopes of all the persons and all the entities that are sitting together. Okay, and once we have been doing that, we have to try to combine forces in the same direction. And on the base of that, we must define a roadmap that should be accepted by all the agents involved, and of course can be reviewed in next steps of the collaboration. That is okay, but it's a good start. And then we have to collaborate also in defining guidelines about how are we going to collaborate. So I'm talking about operative matters, about timelines, about communication ways to people that should be involved in each entity to be the contact point. But it's better if do it that much in advance of being more dynamic. Be very aware about what are the limitations of each organization in order to respond to the work that should be done, and how are we going to structure, okay, all the relationships and the work, okay? This should be written, in a guide manual. Then it's very important to start making very effective interactions, and for that, it's not just a question to sit down and think. It's a question of start doing things together. So we have to have an experiential relationship with the programming team. And for that, it's very important, for example, organize some kind of events or meetings that could be productive for everybody. For example, a sectorial activity involving the whole value chain of an industry, of a particular industry, for example. In this way, of course, academy and research groups will be there as part of the value chain because they are the knowledge and technological providers, but we'll be sitting down with other type of providers for the industry, like biosource providers, bioprocesses providers, of course, customers, end users, marketing people, technological people. I mean, all in this type of framework, it could be very interesting to have interactions, to talk about specific topics, even to present capacities is that should be decided. But it's very important to start feeling what is what are the agents that are involved, and what is the complexity of bioeconomy altogether, okay? Then very, very nice as well to start thinking about in terms like, what can I do for you and what can you do for me? So try to collaborate in terms of exchange equipment between companies and universities, and trying to establish pilot programs. It can really establish a very interesting relationships because we are starting to be, customers to each other. So this is also a way really to know each other personally, to know how you work, and to establish what's the way of how is your work, how is my work, and how we can collaborate. And of course, consolidate long-term relationships is very important, but please, for all I'm saying, even for creating that programming working team, it's very important to take advantage of existing collaborations between university research groups and business collaborating. Okay, and particularly if you have good relationships that have been going a bit cold in the last year, you can start restarting that or reinforcing those relationships. For example, establishing a potential list of the R&D projects that you have in mind to perform in collaboration with that university or that university with that industry. Next one, please. So until now, we didn't start still collaborating to define the education program in bioeconomy at all. All that work has to be done before we sit down and we start actually designing that educational program. But it sounds strange, but it's kind of a guarantee that when we sit down for that, we are going to be in much better position to really get success out of it. So, but yeah, well, in the sixth best practice, we start, framing what are we going to be talking about when we start in the short future to define the program, the educational program for bioeconomy. Okay, because what we are going to do there, the keyword is to define a conceptual framework, okay, based on good practices that will be the framework that will make us to understand each other in the area of bioeconomy. I'm talking about, first, of course, shared terminology about bioeconomy, starting with that, but also, for example, starting to consider the results of the UrBIOfuture project, for example. What are the gaps, what are the profiles demanded, and have different points of view about this, enrich, you know, the view of that, depending on the person, depending on the perspective, etc. Also doing some benchmarking at international level, for example, about other educational programs. And of course, after that, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th best practice are about to enrich, to do exercises, active actions to enrich what will be in the future the education program, but not just sitting down again, but doing it actively. So how we are going to, for example, design the education plan in terms of knowledge transfer that was commenting Alex before, that was the first priority for the industry in terms of professional profiles demanded. Well, let's dialogue about knowledge transfer, okay, and use all that the dialogue, all the conclusions that we can get as part of the things we have to take into account when designing the education program. In the same way, let's do the same when we will need to define the education program in terms of promotion of bio-based entrepreneurship, okay? Let's take the opportunity to consolidate collaborations for effective generation of a spin-off and startups in the programming working team. And then use all that in conclusions and knowledge that I will get out of it, apart of perhaps some new startups and also new spin-offs, to define in the future the educational program. Of course, also use some tools that can be very useful for to use also not just as you know for business, but also for active learning. A bit in the lines that the BioRookie is planning to do, you know. But do it, for example, using living labs or real-time laboratories that normally are used as a very interesting experiment to let end users to test bioproducts and bioprocesses prototypes before they get into the market, but useful also for investors, for example, and to get feedback from these final users in order to enhance the qualities or capacities of these prototypes. Let's do it. You know, between the university people and industrial people that are in the working team, you know, in the educational programs working team, and to really appreciate how that can be converted into active learning, into a tool to really use in the educational program, to integrate in the educational program. And the same for organizing permanent interactive forums that, for example, lab tours or ideas lab were stable. So having really stable interactive initiatives like that, and where business and researchers are really able to meet regularly in order to talk and to visit the labs and see what is going on in them, what are the expected results in a particular experiment, etc. That can be also a very good tool for active learning when it's a program for future students. Okay. So next one. So to end, I just want to transmit that our vision is that having 15 most demanding profiles identified in UrBIOfuture provides a very good start point. Also, having 10 UrBIOfuture best practices for academia and industry cooperation provides solid tools and guides. So I suggest to start co-designing next generation of European bioeconomy education programs as soon as possible. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gloria. So now, again, we would like to know if you have any other recommendations for collaboration between pilot sites, education, industry, and other possible stakeholders. So once again, if this is the previous one, here you can start voting again on menti.com. Thank you. Sorry, it just takes a little bit before all the answers start loading. Fun some patience. Patience is probably good as well, especially at the start of it. Primary producers, documentation, exchange programs. Key person.
Yeah. That's
Funds and patience. It seems someone else replied that as well. Boost government's support, definitely both at international and regional level. Exchange programs. Some other people are replying that as well. Okay, couple of minutes more. Projects money. Yeah, I guess money comes with funds and projects may come with funds as well. Talk more, someone said. Student projects, start simple. Okay, we are gonna start moving then. Just one more minute so it loads everything that hasn't appeared on the screen yet. Okay. Good, thank you very much for that. I'm gonna move now then to present, oh, okay. Sorry for that. I just closed the presentation by mistake. So apologies, I'm opening it again. And we are going to proceed now then with the main conclusions and recommendations. So once again, please be aware that here we are going really straightforward, and we have, of course, a lot more complex conclusions than the ones we are presenting here, but we want to give you some straight to the point and specific recommendations. We are actually very happy with the results of the project because they kind of sum up the outcomes of all the different researches that we've carried out. So Paulina, for example, was presenting some recommendations that they concluded from the BioRookie case study, and those are aligned with the ones that Gloria as well presented. And so here we try to sum up all the conclusions and recommendations that we have from the project overall. And we also have contrasted them. I don't know if some of you joined the previous webinar we held with the LIFT and CeleBio projects, but their conclusions are very similar to the ones we are arriving to, which is great because it means we are getting some points that are key. So for the first one, Europe's complexity. So I don't think I'm saying anything that you are not aware of. Europe is really complex, and its different country and even its different region has their own legal frameworks, their own educational systems, and even maybe more important, their own bio-based industry focus. Some regions may focus on algae and others maybe in olives. So it's important to acknowledge the different regional realms. And but it's also important to keep in mind the international one. So while implementation definitely should be done at the regional level, frameworks need to be designed at the European level. For example, the practices we may learn in the Andalusia region could be extrapolated or applied in Southeast Ireland, for example. If we don't bear in mind the European level, we may be wasting time and resources. But also, if we don't bear in mind the regional one, we may not have the right focus. So it's really important to not neglect any of these two realms and keep them in mind at all times. Then another conclusion we achieved is, or we reached, is that regarding research and innovation, people should be focusing more on the experiments themselves and get to a point in which it's understood not only the conclusions or the results, but also the entire process. Basically, we need to generate practical and useful knowledge, not only theoretical one. Moving to the third conclusion, it's regarding industry and education, and of course, collaboration. The industry needs to collaborate with the educational institutions, especially maybe like doing in-company activities or proposing challenges to be achieved by students. It's important also that we put the focus on the entire value chain. So the industry needs to contribute to the education. So it's because in the end, it's also the one benefiting from these educated students later on. The next one is the new methodologies that we need to explore. There are recently several types of learning, new learning processes like co-creation, design thinking, more engaging and interactive ways of learning than the traditional ones. And this is important also because it will help us attract the younger generations, which in the end will be the future workforce for the bio-based industry. So the fifth conclusion is transversal and cross-sectoral skills. As we've seen before, the bioeconomy is an evolving sector and it's transversal and it encompasses really different fields, and as such, it needs also transversal skills. So we have already seen in the gaps that Aleix presented, some of them were making reference to soft skills like business or even like other different fields like business management, circular economy, marketing, and soft skill like critical thinking. So it's really important to keep this in mind. And then the last one, collaboration. Collaboration is key, is at the core of everything. So we need collaboration between projects and initiatives. We need to share the knowledge that we create. We need to share the best practices and of course the lessons learned, because then other initiatives can take it from there and don't repeat the same mistakes, but just base the future research and work on the success and the knowledge developed. And it's also important to collaborate at every level. We have talked about collaboration between research and industry, also between education and industry, but we need to go even farther and we need to involve all the stakeholders from European Union member states to regional and local authorities, municipalities, pilot centers, teachers, not only from universities, but at all levels. I mean, the earlier we start addressing the bio-based industry needs. So if we target younger students, it's even better. I mean, we need to start educating from really early stages. And well, I don't know if you have any questions. These are the 6 main conclusions we reached. And if you have any question, it's the time now to pose them. And otherwise, we will go to the last interactive session on Mentimeter. Okay. So they are pointing that they reached very similar conclusions in LIFT, and that's great. And it's also great that we have been sharing this knowledge, as we said before. Okay, so I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna ask you to please go again to Menti. Here we have the previous session. And now it would be this one. We really appreciate your feedback. It's super important for us. So if you could please let us know how would you rate this webinar. And then there is also another question after that one on whether you would recommend it to other colleagues or not. For us, it's key that, I mean, we do this not only, of course, for the project's dissemination, but for everyone to be engaged and be able to solve all your questions and doubts. So please don't keep any question. If you have, if you come up with anything afterwards, drop us an email and we will be super happy to be reaching out and be replying to it. Of course, if you want to give us some specific feedback, you can write down on the chat. For those, for example, that didn't consider it very good or who consider it bad, we are all ears and we would be happy to know your opinion on this. Okay, before everyone goes, you can continue with this one, but also those who already voted on that one, it would be great if you can also reply whether you would recommend this webinar to your friends and colleagues. I also wanted to say that if you need a certificate of attendance, we can provide that on demand, and we will be sharing the session on YouTube, and we will be sending you an email also with the presentation and the YouTube video. Okay, great. It's good that many of you would recommend it to friends and colleagues. Okay. So thank you very much. I'm going to start saying goodbye because I see some people are already leaving. Thank you so much for your participation. I hope you enjoyed, and you stay safe and have a very nice day.